mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts. How do we like our martial arts? One at a time. One at a time.
What's up, guys? This is José Youngs here. MMAfighting.com. And when we have a big boxing match, we don't always do these preview shows. But when it's for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world, we had to call the boxing boys to give you a little preview show. I think the last time we did this, Casey was on site for Garcia and it was Garcia and Tank Davis. So it was just me, and then the two I'll introduce in a moment. It was me, Jed Meshew. Of course, I'm José Youngs. We had me, Jed, and of course New York Rick.
Hello.
So the Boxing Bros.
The Boxing Bros. The last time we did this, it was taped because Casey was on site, like I said. So bring your questions. Let's try to keep it boxing only, because we'll have a UFC preview show for tomorrow for UFC Vegas 92. I assume is the number. You could tell me it's 98, and that could also be right, and I would believe you. But let's start, guys. For the first time since 1999, the boxing world is going to get an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world when Oleksandr Usyk, who I believe is the IBA, IBF, WBO, and IBO heavyweight champion.
He's everything but the WBC.
And then if you want to include the ring as well, that is also Tyson Fury. I like to include the ring because the more belts, the better in my mind, because I think there is nothing cooler than seeing a man carrying a bunch of championship belts after getting in a fist fight. So the more you can drape over a human being, the better. But Eric, I'll start with you because you and I, we slack a lot about boxing, especially about this heavyweight division. And before we get into the matchups and the fan interest and everything, are you surprised as a boxing fan that it's taken this long, 1999 to present, to finally get another undisputed heavyweight championship fight?
Is it bad if I say no? Is it bad if I say that's exactly what boxing would do and is expected that way? I think there's obviously been a lot of different circumstances that have happened that I think would create such a long time between. The heavyweight division has kind of been in flux for quite a bit. I think Tyson Fury lately has kind of brought some stability to it, and then lately not. So it's just one of those divisions that I think because it was the glamour division in boxing and in all of combat sports for so long that people would kind of be looking toward these opportunities. But no, it doesn't surprise me because as the purses have increased and as the business of boxing has increased, and I think, boxing's death prematurely a few years ago has shown not to be correct. And boxing is as healthy as ever, especially from the top earners in the sport. It makes opportunities for things beyond title victories to be more important. And so it doesn't surprise me. I think a lot of things have happened that have kind of made it that way. But I will say I am extremely happy that it is happening because I think a unified heavyweight title is something significant, and I am excited about that aspect of it in a major way. I love the Usyk and Fury matchup from a technical perspective and just kind of seeing which one is going to be able to impose their will. But from a unification of the heavyweight boxing titles perspective, I'm almost more excited. So I'm not surprised, but I am very happy that it is happening.
Yeah, 100%. And hopefully whoever gets these undisputed titles, I know there's a rematch clause. Hopefully they can stay undisputed because I believe Lennox Lewis got stripped and who was it? Riddick Bowe before him got stripped because they didn't want to fight mandatories and this and that. I think Mike Tyson was the last real one that had multiple defenses. I think he had 5 or 6. So let's hope they can at least get 3 or 4 before we start talking about stripping stuff. But Jed, I want to go to you. Eric, he talks about he's just glad that this is for the heavyweight undisputed title. There were moments where, Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder probably should have fought for the heavyweight undisputed title when, Anthony Joshua had all the belts and Deontay Wilder had the WBC. That was a big marquee match. It didn't happen. Andrew Reeves came in, kind of shocked the world. Anthony Joshua, lost to Oleksandr Usyk. So take the prize fighting out of it. They're obviously bigger matchups. So let's put the prize fighting to bed for a second. How happy are you with this matchup specifically, stylistically, and just skill-wise between Tyson Fury and Usyk for the heavyweight championship?
I was pretty pumped when it got announced, and I spent the last day and a half going back and watching fights with these dudes just because we're doing this and we've got a round table coming out and there's just a bunch of stuff. I wanted to remember a little more than just going off the top of the head. This fight's going to kick ass.
Mhm.
I have no idea what's going to happen in it, frankly. But stylistically, we've seen a couple of iterations of Fury's style, and he has fought different ways. And certainly as he's aged, he's gotten a little different. And Usyk is just such a cerebral technician of brilliance. Like it's so what each of them are bringing to this contest is very different. And like we've seen, Usyk handled Anthony Joshua, but I think that honestly, the first fight was more competitive than I remember it being. As I went back and watched it, certainly I do think Usyk got it, but you saw him kind of navigate a dude who is much bigger, ostensibly more powerful than him. But you get Fury, who is also bigger and powerful, but a little bit more of a boxing savant than AJ is, in my estimation, who has a few more tricks in the tool belt, but also the way he plays mind games in there and is kind of trying to attack you mentally against someone like Usyk, who seems unbreakable in that regard. These two just kind of lock horns in such an interesting dynamic, really polar opposites in a lot of ways. I think that certainly makes this really interesting. I don't know if it will play out as like kind of the way I have it in my head, but just from a on the merits of its own self fight standpoint, this is about as good as heavyweight boxing can do.
Yeah, before we get into the X's and O's on this fight, because I have many a thought on what type of Tyson Fury could pop out. But Eric, I do want to ask you, you handle a lot of our social media, and the last time we did this for Tank and Garcia, that kind of lit the social media world on fire, specifically because, Ryan Garcia did it again when he fought Devin Haney. That seemed to be the talk of the fight world. I've noticed a lot of these fights in Saudi Arabia specifically don't always translate to engagement in America. Maybe because of the time difference, maybe because U.S. fans they view the Saudi Arabia stuff as a gimmick still. The crowd's not there. The rest of the card isn't necessarily that stacked. So I'm just curious, Eric, when you are looking at social media, are you seeing buzz for this that it deserves? Or is it, like I said, fans, they see Saudi Arabia, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and they'll see the results after the fight's over?
Yeah, I mean, primarily, obviously, we're an MMA site, and so I'm not seeing a ton of MMA fan buzz for this fight. I think we'll probably, as we
Right.
get closer to the fight, as we are arriving at Saturday, I think we'll probably see some of the fighters starting to tune in, because these two fighters deserve the attention, right? These are two of the best heavyweights of the era, and it'd be a shame if they weren't getting the attention. But I will say, like, a Ryan Garcia, a Tank, they're gonna draw the attention because of the things that are not necessarily related to the fight matchup. Now, certainly those are great boxers as well. Shout out to Ryan Garcia's last performance against Devin Haney. But I think the buzz for this, and the biggest thing that has come from this fight week has been John Fury headbutting somebody, right? Like that is the thing that has gotten the most buzz and the most attention on this fight. It's not the idea of the fight itself. And so I think this is one of those that might be a little bit slept on, but I do think come Saturday, when the buzz around the idea of these two getting in the ring and unifying the titles starts to build a little bit stronger, that people will feel like they're obligated to watch and not miss out on something that's important and significant. But it hasn't had the fight week that has made people go, oh my God, I need to pay attention to this. And Ryan Garcia, last fight against Devin Haney had that, right? There was the craziness, there was the wildness of what Ryan Garcia was doing, that drew people in. And I'd say that was probably like the last like big feeling kind of boxing fight that we're talking about. So I'm seeing it a little bit under the radar, but I think come Saturday, when people are starting to recognize and realize that there's potential history on the line and they're going to miss it, I think that's when we'll start seeing increased activity. And I certainly think the fighters themselves will probably be tuning in for this.
Questions for both of you guys. Jed, I'll start with you because in the UFC we have one champion, and then you could argue the champion's not always the best fighter in that division. Matchups, styles make matchups, and this and that. Maybe even the Bellator champion is the best person in their weight class. When all of the belts are on the line, I think it's safe to say skill-wise, these are probably the two best heavyweights in the world right now, Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk. I'll go so far as to say Usyk may be the greatest cruiserweight ever, right up there with Evander Holyfield. There's nothing left for him to do. He did the damn thing at cruiserweight and moved up. So if he wins, he has to go down as one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters ever. I don't have Tyson Fury in the top 10 heavyweights ever yet. He could be, but his resume isn't there. Usyk could be the same thing. The biggest win Fury has are the three Wilder fights, obviously the Klitschko fight. I don't rate Klitschko in the top 10 heavyweights of all time. I don't think that's controversial. I would even put him like
It
maybe
shouldn't
16,
be.
17, not even in the top 15 for me. He is very good. I wouldn't put him in the top 15. But Jed, I'll ask you this question, and then Eric, same one for you. Who is the best heavyweight boxer right now on planet Earth?
Right now, I will default to Usyk. Does not necessarily mean I'm going to pick him to win this fight. I'm honestly still very conflicted about that. I understand Tyson Fury absolutely has an argument for it, and I'm here for that. But in some ways, you are as good as your last fight, right? And
Right.
look, Fury, he won that fight. I scored that fight for him against Francis Ngannou, but Francis Ngannou, like that's a tough win. Whereas Usyk, I think his wins over AJ are good enough. And this is a little simplistic, but I kind of adhere to it in some extent because there are so many belts, and I'm with you. Have a bunch of belts, but the WBA one is the one that means the most to me, just because that is the one with lineage. That is the old belt. That is Jack Dempsey's belt. Like so. If you are the guy who holds that, to me, that feels like that means more. And he happens to have that and the ring, which I also ascribe a lot of heft to. And so I think justifiably he is the best heavyweight in the world. I think if you want to say Tyson Fury is, I cannot disprove you. It's part of what makes this fight great is we are going to figure that out. And I do think while Anthony Joshua has his own sort of argument, certainly if Fury wins, he has his own kind of argument for that. I think the winner of this is justifiably and will be the undisputed best heavyweight in the world, which is fucking cool, man. Like we haven't had that in 25 years.
Now, I do agree with you. WBA, of all the belts, holds the most weight. Tyson Fury technically never lost any of his titles. He vacated them when he went crazy and did a bunch of drugs and got fat and, checked into rehab and found God and this and that. Came back, won, had a draw in there, but, he's not lost since. So he's technically as considered the lineal champion, or, remember MMA tried to do the WAMA champion? That was a fun time. Similar to that, except doesn't have a real belt. So, Eric, are you on the side of Jed? Is Usyk the best heavyweight in the world, or is Fury the guy technically never lost, gave up his belts willingly? Is he the actual best?
I think this becomes, unfortunately, like a semantical argument because of how many belts there are, and because of the idea of like, what do you consider best versus like resume versus greatness? Like, there's all these kinds of different shades when you're talking about this conversation. If I'm going into what my definition of the word best is, I think it's Tyson Fury. If somebody thinks it's Usyk, I'm like Jed said, I'm not gonna lay down arms and try to go too hard on the debate. I do think these are the two best, and I think we will have a resolution. Some of it is even part prognostication, right? Some of it is that I believe Tyson Fury will ultimately win this fight, and we can get into the details of that later. And therefore, I am viewing him as the best heavyweight until proven otherwise. And as you mentioned, right, titles were relinquished and taken as opposed to losing them. And so I side with what Tyson Fury has done. It does become the where does Tyson Fury rank argument in all-time heavyweight greatness, I think is the conversation that I'm starting to have more thoughts about and start to really try to see where his wins are at. But I do think it's a bit of a discredit to Tyson Fury, and I think he's had a hard road in the sense that he's fighting the opponents that are available to him and have been available to him in this era. It isn't his fault that Anthony Joshua got starched by Andy Ruiz, right? There was a potential mega fight that was on the horizon, and that could have been something, and it's not his fault. And I think that the opportunities that were given to him and the amount of money that he was able to generate in his fights against Wilder were opportunities that people can't pass. This fight, I think, will be a real important one for his legacy and certainly for Usyk's as well. But I think Tyson Fury more needs this fight in a major way to start putting him in conversations that I think some people are more prepared to do and some people are reluctant to do. So, yeah, for me, it is Tyson Fury. But that argument dissolves very easily on Saturday if Usyk is able to get the win. I don't think he has the resume behind him to be able to support that idea. Even if it's just one loss, I think it will be a very significant loss and will really dissolve that rather quickly. But for me, it is Tyson Fury until proven otherwise.
Do you think, this is just off the top of my head, do you think Fury's resume is better than Usyk's?
Not really.
No.
Not really.
'Cause
Again,
I would even say Anthony Joshua has a technical better resume
it's
than Fury.
I think, as I said, I think he's been hard done by like what
Yeah,
was
yeah.
been
No, you're
available
not
to
wrong.
him. The other heavyweights didn't do their jobs in order to make this happen. Deontay
Yeah.
Wilder was the one that was game and had the opportunities, and there was so much money that could be generated by those fights. An Anthony Joshua fight would have gone a long way if it had happened previously. But again, this fight is so significant, and this fight is so clearly to me the two best.
Yeah.
That I'm looking beyond that, right? I'm looking to after this fight, where will we think about these two, and that's what's so exciting to me. But no, I mean, if I'm sitting down and being objective, like I'd probably say Usyk has a better resume, and to your point, I think there's an argument that Joshua does. Now it's hard when you have those losses sprinkled in there,
Yeah.
and Fury doesn't, but yeah, it's been a wild ride at heavyweight, and that's why I'm so looking forward to this kind of like being a little more streamlined and these conversations taking a little bit of a more clear shape after the fact.
Yeah, and let's not forget the pandemic kind of threw a wrench into the heavyweight title, and then it was his right to do it. Deontay Wilder, kind of suing people or kind
The
of
rematch clause,
calling for his rematch clause after the Joshua fight was basically booked.
yes.
I made a graphic announcing Tyson Fury Anthony Joshua. That lives in my computer somewhere for the date that they had agreed upon. And the Deontay Wilder was like, psych, I'm taking the fight. So Deontay Wilder in the pandemic, neither one was it was out of everyone's control. Deontay Wilder did the thing that he felt was right, and then no one had control of the pandemic. Jed, you were making some faces when we were talking resume. Were you looking at their resumes while we were speaking?
I did. I brought it back up just to see, because I don't think, if we're just talking heavyweight, if you're obviously bringing in the cruiserweight part of it, then sure, Usyk. I have no issues with that. But if we're just talking about heavyweight, Usyk's just is so short-lived at heavyweight that it's honestly like the same, only Fury also has more. Like if you consider AJ and Wilder on like relatively similar tiers of opposition, which I think is fair to do, they both fought Chisora. Like there's just not as much there. So I would have to default to Fury as having the better heavyweight resume. But if we're just talking boxing resume, I mean, we're talking about a dude who is one of, if not the best cruiserweights of all time. So yeah, his overall resume is better.
In my mind, he's at worst number 2.
Yeah, I don't even think that's in your mind. I think that's probably broadly accepted at this point.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, he has obviously an exceptional resume for the totality of his career. But if we're talking about the heavyweight, which I think is what we need to focus on for this fight, then Fury gets the nod just because he's been doing it longer, and he does have. There are a lot of names, but to your point, it's not really his fault. But he does have the best names available to him.
Yeah, and I know I kind of shit on Klitschko a bit earlier in this program.
Everyone shits on Klitschko.
Of everyone these two have beaten, I would hazard, and I don't think this is not controversial, Klitschko's the biggest names in terms of like greatness among heavyweights. Like like Joshua beat him, but he's not in that realm of greatness. Like Klitschko could be a top 15 heavyweight ever. So yes, I do agree with you.
That a modern heavyweight boxer could have on their resume, that is the name. That is the name that you would want.
That is the big name.
And frankly, Fury's lucky he wasn't Klitschko, because Klitschko had no one to fight for 8 years.
Because he wouldn't fight his brother, and then he didn't fight Deontay Wilder. That's like a whole other conversation too. And yes, Anthony Joshua beat him too. And that to me, until that trilogy between Fury and Wilder, the best heavyweight fight, and it could still be, was Joshua and Klitschko. That fight was unbelievable. Yes. So in the opposite vein, the Fury fight against Klitschko was incredibly boring, but he was the guy to dethrone him, and no one argued it was a robbery. So anyway, I digress.
One of the worst fights you've ever seen.
One of the worst fights you'll ever see, but a brilliant game plan by Tyson Fury, and did not feed into the booze. He just went in there and got on his back foot and just jabbed and moved around and picked him apart into a very boring yet dominant decision. So Eric, I'll start with you. What are the big factors in this? Is it as clear cut and dry as, Tyson Fury's physically bigger? Yes, he lost all this weight. Is that going to play a factor? Losing all that weight, coming in fighting in a way, a size you're not used to against a smaller guy? Is that going to play a factor? Is Usyk being this, as weird as this sounds, is his just being a smaller target going to be a factor? Punching down is a lot harder than punching up in boxing. So what are some of the X factors you've seen between Usyk and Fury?
I do think it's going to be the size, right? All elements of that kind of version of what we're talking about with size. The weight is interesting to me because I think, to what you kind of like alluded to, I'm less concerned about, like, is Tyson Fury going to have the weight to lean on Usyk, right? We know that he is. We know that this is a bigger man versus a smaller man. It is that simple when at the end of the day. But the idea of him being comfortable with the weight, I think, is more interesting, right? Like, Tyson Fury being comfortable in the body as it is constructed, I think, is the more fascinating angle of the he looks lean and mean. Less so the, like, oh man, he's really focused and really dedicated and he's in great shape. Like, yeah, sure. But, like, we've seen people who look great getting off the bus get completely nuked. And we've seen people who look like Tyson Fury in his sloppier body shapes just be wizards and just be masters of the technical craft. So I'm less concerned about, like, the impact of it in terms of his style, and more concerned about, like, moving around and physically feeling comfortable in that shape of body. That's interesting to me in terms of the weight. Ultimately, though, I do think it is simple. I really do think it does come down to a size equation. Is Usyk going to be able to avoid the shots and be sharper and have the speed advantage and just move around Tyson Fury? Or is Tyson Fury going to be able to lean on him, and when he's not leaning on him, use his jab to keep him away? Like, that is... maybe it's too obvious, and maybe I'm oversimplifying, and maybe I'm underestimating some other critical factors of this fight. But to me, it does feel like that is the story of the fight. And I'm interested to see how it plays out. I personally have a lean on it, but it's one of those fights that I have a lean, but it's not super strong. Like, I would not be shocked by another version that upsets my current thinking. But I do think it's just size. Size is going to be the biggest factor in this fight, no doubt, in my mind.
Jed, similar question. If you have to put together a game plan for the winning fighter for Usyk or Fury, what say you?
So I've gone full circle on this, because when it was originally announced, it's like, I think Usyk's just going to beat the shit out of him. And then I started thinking about it more, and I was like, I don't know, Tyson Fury he's going to take this a little more seriously. You know, he shows that he's in shape. Like, okay, he can be more effective with the hang on you, be big, make you carry that weight, kind of wear you down, win those middle rounds that Usyk has a bit of a history of giving away some of those, and kind of just do Tyson Fury things. And as I kept watching, I was just like, I think I've changed my mind. I don't think Usyk's going to beat the shit out of him, but I think I'm coming around to Usyk's going to have a lot of success both early and late. And as long as he doesn't punt too many middle rounds away, because Usyk is, just watching the Joshua fights, and Joshua and Fury, not the same fighter. He is so good at mixing everything up, at feinting his way in between offense, at kind of getting you to hesitate for a half second because of the feints. And then, oh, here comes the left. Here comes me stepping out on an angle. I'm going to pop the body now. He is throwing in such different shots every time that it's hard to get a real read on him to adjust. And even when Joshua maybe started to have a little more success, all right, I'll change it up, and now I'll adjust and keep moving forward. I think his footwork is going to be the biggest advantage here. Fury is coming in lighter, and so if he's getting back to a little earlier style where he is a little bit more light on his feet than he kind of has been later in his career, I think that will help him. But to me, the footwork battle, it's very not nearly as exciting as other people could talk about stuff. But, like, that's the one, if I can see Usyk continually getting that lead foot advantage, getting out to angles and kind of finding ways to mix in shots and keeping Fury guessing, I think he's going to have a good day.
It's such an interesting matchup to me, because Usyk is a guy that if you go back, like, I think it was the Gaziev fight and the Briedz fight, I thought Usyk dominated those fights. The judges did not. Usyk, so how do I phrase this? Like, he wins fights that I thought were closer. I mean, that I thought had a wider gap than the judges. Fury, outside of getting dropped a few times, has never been dominated in a round. Like, he's never looked lost out there. He's always known how to be a high level boxer and kind of pull it out the bag. If that's the case, because I think Fury's the guy that doesn't get dominated, and Usyk is a guy that even if he wins rounds, wins them narrowly, optically, maybe ringside. So I think that's going to play a huge factor. It's just two contrasting styles. I also just think, and this is like, I hate like, championship mentality, mama mentality, whatever. That plays a factor. Like, not everyone can get up off the canvas in the 12th round after taking a clean uppercut from Deontay Wilder. Not everyone, can go into a fifth gear like Oleksandr Usyk and, snap Anthony Joshua's head back with a jab in the 10th, 11th round. They cancel each other out in terms of like that level of like mentality and grittiness, I think, but the way they win rounds is so different. Usyk is just incredibly technical, knows how to fight in any angle. I think Usyk is very good at predicting his opponents, and I think Fury is very good at reacting to his opponents. So Fury will react to these looping punches and this movement and everything, and he can adapt on the fly, and Usyk will bait you into his style of fighting, just like Lomachenko. Like, he can predict and get ahead of you. Rather than go A, B, C, he's going A to D and cutting off that middle. So it is such an interesting stylistic matchup. I don't care if the belts are on the line. I just want to see these two guys fight because they are just so different in their styles of fighting. I think Fury should absolutely go on the back foot and kind of stick and move and keep his jab, because it would be real stupid if he rushed in at Oleksandr Usyk, because Usyk will kind of, get in that body shot. And I don't know if he's susceptible to the body. I think that was a low blow against Dubois. I know a lot of people do, but they counted as I know people counted it as a drop, but my head said Usyk, my gut says Fury. Eric, what's your official prediction?
Yeah, I'm going with Tyson Fury. I think on the outside he's going to be able to do better work. And to one of your points, like I think he's going to win those middle rounds, as Jed kind of pointed out. Like we saw it even against Francis Ngannou, which I think was like a horrific performance. I don't think there's anybody on the planet
who's ever looked.
Yeah, it was by far his worst performance. But even then, even amongst that, even in the midst of that, he got back to a game plan, stuck the jab, and won the middle rounds. Like, it just is who Tyson Fury is. I think the aberration is more I'm trying to nuke Deontay Wilder, really chasing that big shot that we saw from him. I think that the real version, that at his core essence of Tyson Fury, is just being the longer, bigger fighter. And he's very good at it. And he is not Anthony Joshua, who I think is susceptible to a lot of the things that Usyk does really well. I think Tyson Fury will be less. Now, certainly, I think ultimately what I see from this fight is I think it will be kind of a closer fight, a little bit gritty, and Tyson Fury wins like a narrow decision. That's ultimately how I see it. I think he's going to pick up the rounds. It's going to look better visually for him. And I don't think either one is going to blow the doors off the other. I think it's going to be a close fight, and I think Tyson Fury is just going to be able to accumulate some more rounds around the middle. But I think he'll probably start pretty hot too. I think he'll be early, and if one of them is going to come on late, it's probably going to be Usyk. But I like Tyson Fury. I liked him a lot more before I saw the Ngannou fight. I'm going to put that one in its own separate category. I'm going to put that one away. I'm going to lock that one in the closet and kind of like put the blinders on, because I don't know what that was. And it was just so far from what we're used to seeing. The weirdness of fighting an MMA fighter, perhaps, or like just so low volume and just really
MMA
not looking
angles.
all there. MMA angles are there. But I'm going to think we'll see a more regular version of Tyson Fury than we saw there. I think a lot of that is also influencing the public and certainly the betting lines, right? Like when this fight was originally made, or when people were starting to think about this fight, I think Fury would have been a significantly bigger favorite, and that Ngannou performance really did him no favors at all. A lot of people would have been backing him a lot more than I think now, and Usyk has done himself favors in the time since, I think, to make it feel like it's a more competitive fight. I lean with Fury. I'm very willing to be proven wrong. I think Usyk is an incredible boxer and somebody who I rated highly for a long time, especially as he was starting to move up to heavyweight. I was somebody who thought he could compete against the highest level, and he has proven that to be true. So this is not a denigration to Usyk. I really believe in him, but I do believe in Tyson Fury slightly more, and I think he will be able to pick up rounds.
Jed, what say you? Are you in agreement?
I'm going to go Usyk. This is a relatively recent change. I've been on Fury for the last like week and a half, but I think he is going to be quicker. And I'm interested to see if Fury coming in lighter will kind of bring back. He's never been a slow heavyweight by any stretch, but if he gets a little more quickness to his game, that's going to help. But I'm ultimately coming down to whenever Usyk needs it, whenever his back has been against the wall or in the Joshua fights, Joshua starts building, he gets around and he kind of sticks it to Usyk for 3 minutes. Immediately Usyk comes out and elevates, and he seems to always have another gear to elevate to when someone pushes him in that phase. And I'm banking on that here. I think he will be the quicker fighter. I think he's going to have the better footwork. I don't think either man is really likely to hurt the other seriously. Both have excellent chins. And so I am with you thinking that this is going to be a really, really close fight, Rick. I suspect we're headed for splitty or majority decision, but I'm going to go on the Usyk side of things because also you guys can never forget this. We're never allowed to have Fury versus AJ. That fight just doesn't get to exist.
It's a
And
good
if
point.
Fury
It's a good point.
wins, then it would exist. So
I
I'm going
didn't
with
factor
the
that in.
boxing gods.
That's true.
I didn't factor that in. It's a tremendous
Jose
point.
never gets to use that graphic. It never gets to happen.
Never.
So
That's the new
there we are.
Alexei. That's the new Alexei Olenek
Olenek
50 career wins. That took 4 fights for me to be able to post it. But anyway, I have no idea. I think this is down the middle. I think it's gonna be like a 7-5 or whatever it is. It's gonna be
that's what it feels like.
Yeah, but it's like I said, Fury dominates rounds. Like his opponents will look lost out there. Fury has never looked lost, and Usyk winning. But then Usyk doesn't look like he dominates rounds either. I think optically it's going to look a lot closer than it is, but I do think Fury will win. I think that uppercut down the middle is just going to be such a factor. The one that he knocked out Dillian White with, because he's going to have a hard time fighting that body because he's so tall and Usyk is so short. Usyk's going to be punching up, which will be giving him a favor. And I just think,
I think Usyk's going to be tagging the body a lot.
Yeah, he could.
I think Jed was smart to point out. I don't think it would behoove Tyson Fury to really try to show that he has power in this fight. Like I think he needs to be slick in this fight and not trying to show like I'm the big man and I can take you out of here. He needs to be on his shit, like diligent. He needs to be very respectful of what Usyk is bringing to him and not try to play the power game. The size game, certainly. I think he needs to lean on him. I think he needs to make him feel that weight. Now, certainly it's less weight than it's been in the past. But again, he's just so much bigger in terms of his frame and the levers that he can put on Usyk that he needs to utilize that as he can. But he needs to box. And he's one of the best at that. If he's on his shit, he will be good in that realm, and he has shown that he can be that. But man, the game plan for the Deontay Wilder fight, where he just wanted to flex his power and show I can take you out, and certainly the body type doesn't fit that version. But I don't think he needs to be looking for a finish here. I think he needs to box, and he will do well if he's able to do that.
Yeah, first person to make a mistake is going to be in for a world of hurt in this fight. Because like I said, both of their styles of fighting are just so different, but they just they counter each other so well. Current odds right now on DraftKings is Tyson Fury minus 120 money line. Total rounds over 10.5, minus 290, under 10.5, 200. I think it is almost assured this goes the distance. I think both are too good to get knocked out.
I think so too, but it's one of those that you feel that, and then all of a sudden
heavyweight. It's heavyweight.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody touches the button and it's done.
Yeah, it's heavyweight.
I will admit I have a little bit of pause, and some of it is like maybe this is like me reading too deep into it, but this week Tyson Fury's been a lot on his like life is great, I can't wait to get home to my family like type shit, and that worries me a little bit. I gotta admit, like when he's talking about like unifying the belts isn't like the be all end all. Now he goes through these, he goes up, he goes down, he has a million different ways he kind of like thinks about fighting and how it fits into the puzzle of his life. But some of the talk about like just wanting to go home and be a family man, to steal a line from Street Fighter, worries me a little bit. It worries me a little bit because Usyk is not the type of guy you can be thinking about anything else other than. So sometimes he kind of says these things in public and behind the scenes he's a little more dialed in. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, but I will admit the coldness and the calculation that we're seeing from Usyk in public comments versus Tyson Fury has me wavering a little bit. It has gotten to me a little bit, but sometimes I read too much into the statements, and once they get to the ring, that all kind of gets put to the side. But just worth pointing out to me.
Right, because Ryan Garcia, if proved anything,
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be an absolute maniac, and you'll beat a
That's exactly
generational
right.
talent when everyone counts you out.
Exactly
So Jed's with Usyk, Fury, Eric is with Fury. I'm gonna go with Fury. I think it's gonna be super close, 7-5. Obviously, we'll get the rematch. I think he's too good to allow a comeback too. Like if Fury, Usyk has shown that if he's down, a handful of rounds in the middle, he is gritty enough and has that fifth gear to, go in there and just kind of beat the brakes out of Joshua in those championship rounds. Tyson Fury, I just don't think will allow that to happen. He is too good, and he's one of those. This is a rare occurrence where both of them have that same fifth gear that just make them great. I think Fury wins, and then the conversation becomes: is he, in that conversation of one of the greatest heavyweights ever? I don't think he's there yet. If he beats Usyk again and then he beats Joshua again, he could very well be top 10 heavyweight in the history of the world, and very clearly the best heavyweight of this generation.
Would you put him at top 15 if he beats Usyk on Saturday?
I think he'd have to beat him twice. Because I think a 7-5, close fight doesn't put him there yet. I think if he goes out there and does it again, I think I wouldn't put him top 10 all time. I'd probably put him in the top 15 all time.
I don't think he would have to do something impressive to get to top 10. Heavyweight just has 100 years of history, so
yeah,
crack
and
that.
Like Larry Holmes might not be top 5, and that's crazy to think about. Like considering how dominant he was.
It's just an impossible field. It's just an insane.
Mike Tyson
field.
is very probably not top 10 heavyweight all time.
100%.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson is the greatest. Mike Tyson's the greatest prize fighter in any sport ever. Like including, the Connors, the Kimbos, the Floyd Mayweathers. Like Mike Tyson's the greatest prize fighter ever. But he's not as great as Muhammad Ali.
I think Floyd. You're right. I think Floyd. He's probably up there.
I think if you count inflation and what Floyd's done, yeah. But
inflation
I think Mike Tyson
could be
was
correct.
I think Mike Tyson was another level. I think he's the greatest prize fighter ever.
Plus, Mike is, main eventing. Really, the question is more: what happens when Mike knocks out Jake Paul? How does that affect his legacy?
On Netflix? Yeah,
if it's a pro fight, man, Netflix, he gets to go back to retire. If he goes back in retirement on a win, God bless him.
It's going to be the most viewed combat sport event in history.
See, I don't think it's going to get there. The current highest ever is 300 million, and that was Ali Frazier won. That 300 million people watched that around the world because that was on basic cable.
I didn't realize that was 300. Jesus.
300 million. 250 million, I think, is like the Netflix count right now, and that's like all Netflix count. I don't think every single one of them are going to watch this fight. It's going to be the most watched this generation.
Million.
Yeah,
I think
it was on basic cable.
If you account for the people that will ultimately steal it, it probably takes the top spot because back then you couldn't steal it. It was terrestrial broadcast.
Well, I also
no
think
one's going to steal this. It's on Netflix.
No, there will be people who don't have the Netflix subscription that are like, I need to find the way.
Well, I also think like back then a lot of people listened on the radio, so you can't count those. And then a lot of people, how many let's all go to the only guy that has a television in the neighborhood, and let's cram 40 people into a room. Those are 40 eyeballs, but only counts as one.
I just had no idea that was 300 million.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 300 million.
Insane amount of human beings.
That's gonna be close. I think Ali had someone once said 1 billion people watched him fight total in his career, which is just
I buy that
astronomical number.
I mean, that's insane, but I do buy that one.
Yeah, because that's over time.
Still,
anyway,
this is going to be the most watched combat sports event of this millennia.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
also, I know Ali Frazier won a lot. Well, back then they still do a bit now, but it was much more common to go to the theater to watch a boxing match. So you buy a ticket, you fill the theater up with 200 people. That's still one viewer. Anyway, Casey, what's your pick?
Can I just say one thing? that I think is important to point out about this fight, or at least like I don't know, worth mentioning. You mentioned at the beginning, okay, let's hope that we get a long reigning champion and they can defend the 4 belts and things like that. Unless I'm mistaken, the IBF has said they intend to vacate the title. Now, that may have changed in the time since. I think there was a point where they said they intend to vacate the title. There's going to be mandatory fights that have to happen. And so we may not be looking at it for very long, which is unfortunate, but worth saying. I believe the IBF said that.
The last they mentioned it was 4 days ago. Usyk said he could vacate all of them.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. I mean, it may be we may have unification for like 2 weeks, but we'll see. And I kind of get it from the perspective that like if they're just going to run these rematches, like I understand kind of, but like it does feel like these governing bodies are very selective when they decide to enforce these things. And it would be unfortunate if we had the unification and then lost it so quickly. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out.
That would be such an insane maneuver.
Boxing, y'all.
Hey, this is the most relevant this has been in a long time. Let's get rid of it and put it on.
But they all hate each other.
That's their one belt, though. That's theirs. They have to control it. The boxers don't control it.
All of the govening bodies hate each other, and it is infuriating. Anyway, Casey, real quick, who's your pick before we go to the
Frank
piece?
Sanchez is going to be the heavyweight champion. It's going to be dumb as shit.
I honestly don't have a pick because I just don't know enough about Usyk. Usyk's a guy like I hear about a lot. But I've never actually watched a complete fight of his. Just because it's just
AJ fights are fun. They're free on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I've seen some highlights.
Pretty great.
I've seen some highlights, but like that's what I mean. Like I haven't like gone round 1 to round whatever. I've never watched Usyk.
Yeah.
I obviously know he's very good. I know you guys know what you're talking about. I listened to BC on BTL just talk about Usyk, basically saying he thinks that he's the greatest cruiserweight ever. I'm obviously super excited about this fight for boxing and just combat sports in general, but I really don't have an opinion on who's going to win. I just hope it's a good fight, and then but I like the idea that Fury can't win because then we might actually get.
I know.
Can't happen.
Can't happen.
Well, in reality, he can win this one, but then the next one he's going to lose anyway because then we can't have nice things.
And how does that work? If one person wins and the other person wins the rematch, and then are they guaranteed a trilogy then?
No, it's just the 2 fights. The contracts are already done for those 2, so there's not a third thing that is already negotiated. They could decide, hey, we're going to do a trilogy.
It's fairly likely if they split. If they split, it's relatively likely. Though
I don't know if Fury wins.
If Fury is the one who wins the second one, then they're not, because he will.
They're going to do Joshua.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah,
Fury wins the second one. All right.
They're going to do everything in their power to make sure Fury has belts for when he fights Joshua.
Yeah, I mean it matters. If you're
going to lose one of these fights, lose this one. Win the next one.
Yeah, lose the first.
Let's not. I'm so excited for this fight because remember when Ngannou and Fury like faced off, and I went on that mad rant about how I don't give a shit about that fight, and I just want to see Usyk fight Fury. We're finally here. We're finally here. This is gonna.
I think there's a lot of boxing fans who are in that boat. Like, just did not 100%. Give a shit about the Fury Ngannou stuff.
Is this fight at the right? Did this fight miss the boat?
Yeah.
No.
You think it's the right time? I think it could have been a little earlier, but yeah, it's fine.
It's not, but like it's not Manny Floyd. Yeah. It's not Manny Floyd.
No. It's not that.
Okay.
Fury Joshua is going to be too late. Like whenever that happens, it'll still be fine, but like after a couple of bad performances and losses, it's less. But this is fine.
The window for this was pretty big because Usyk was never one of those like Wilder, Joshua, Klitschko guys or Dillian White, like because he injected his name into the heavyweight division so relatively recently and then just kind of wiped the floor with everyone. Then we started talking about this fight. I think if they had waited another year, it would have been too late. I think right now is like the tail end of the perfect time. Like if they had waited to 2025, it would have been like, all right, let's get these guys going. They're not getting younger.
They're both old, so I agree with that.
Yeah, it's the right time though. Like if it was earlier, it wouldn't have been that much earlier to make it significantly different. Like this feels like it's the time. It's a perfect time.
Is the location perfect?
No,
that's or the location just make it possible.
Or the location just make it possible?
Yeah, I mean, that's like that's. Or the location just make it possible.
Or the location just make it possible?
You know.
Or does the location just make it possible? That's or the location just make it possible?
The location makes it possible. The location makes it possible. The money makes it possible. Like there's a
The
real
money,
world
basically.
where this doesn't
The
happen.
location's fine because it's just where all big boxing fights are going to happen for the
Well,
Yeah,
foreseeable.
the other best option would have been what, like Vegas or the UK, and now it's Tyson Fury having a home field advantage. Not that Usyk wouldn't have been game for that. Certainly, I think Usyk would have
MSG
been
is
game
always
for that.
cool for
MSG would have been
MSG,
great.
but like
MSG would have been great.
it's as fine a spot as any. It sounds like based on what Turkey was saying, like there's a lot of people that are going to be in that building. So like it'll be good.
And
I'm sure
if
that
Turkey
it'll be good.
starts, if Turkey starts doing fights in America too, like he was saying, it's gonna. I think people.
Well,
They're,
that needs to happen.
yeah.
he said on the MMA
That's my
hour
biggest
that
issue.
he said on the MMA hour that the Sphere card is
He's
sponsored
being sponsored
by the government, and he also
and
said
Crawford's fight,
there's
right?
been
Crawford's next
reports and talks about the Wembley potential Joshua versus Fury fight being a production of Saudi Arabia. So like I think they're going outside that. The Terrence Crawford
wild.
fight is going to be sponsored by Saudi Arabia, but not taking. They will be taking place, I think, in California.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we will see more of that, and that'd be
Like,
great. I think that's smart.
If he does Canelo Crawford, I think that has to be somewhere in America. Either like Southern California, I feel like would be perfect, or Texas or Vegas or something like that.
Yeah,
I
feel like
those
Vegas
fans could travel.
Texas. I like
Texas
Texas
or
for
Vegas.
that one.
Vegas.
Yeah,
Right?
Texas
or
is
Vegas.
good.
Yeah.
That's
My main
a
issue
fight that
with
could
just
that's a fight that could be in a stadium.
for sure.
Yeah,
You
probably.
put that thing at AT&T for sure.
How much
Yeah,
does this fight? Go on.
I was just
Go
to say,
ahead.
as like the one thing that I would say, like Riyadh is Riyadh. We're doing this now. The crowds aren't live, and that's
Yeah,
like
there's
that's
a
the only
difference in the
downer
energy.
here.
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
energy is just very, very different. It's not ideal for this situation. I get that. I don't think Riyadh cares. They clearly have a separate agenda, but yeah, like it will be cool when we start getting Saudi cards outside of Saudi.
I will say, like, I don't expect this to be somebody getting bombed and all of a sudden the crowd is raucous anyway. Like, I am expecting more of a boxing fight from this. But like when Ngannou knocked down Fury, like I don't care if that was in my backyard, in Vegas, in Saudi. Like we felt that through the screen. So I'm not a paying ticket customer. I don't really care if something big happens. I think it will translate, and so we'll see how this plays. But certainly in the arena, the energy is completely different. To Jed's point, like it is just not even close to equivalent. But if something crazy happens, I'm sure that people will feel that as they're watching and get excited about it.
Yeah,
What were you gonna ask, Casey?
I'm sorry.
What were you gonna ask? We cut you off.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm just just the fact that it's happening at an odd time in Saudi Arabia. I just wonder how much different or bigger this fight would be if it was in the States. Or does it even?
Beginning.
Yeah, or does it even matter?
It absolutely does, because I have friends that love boxing, but they just view Saudi Arabia as like a gimmicky thing, and they're like, if it doesn't happen in Wembley or MSG or T-Mobile, it doesn't count, which is obviously silly. But I think what they mean is like it's a fight that they'll see what happens after. Like they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to tune in. Like this. Go ahead.
Your point, Casey, about the time is also important.
Yeah.
Like
4 p.m.
There's a reason.
bad time.
There's a reason the UFC is making Leon Edwards and Tom Aspinall walk at like 4 or 5 a.m. Because that U.S. audience just does not tune in. Like when Habib was fighting in Abu Dhabi and we're doing like pay-per-views in the middle of the day, people just did not buy that pay-per-view. It's just what it is. The American audience doesn't now. Certainly, like this is a global event, right? You're gonna count. You're gonna try and count. Maybe like the UK fans are buying this pay-per-view.
The UK audience is going to do fine for this.
Yeah, so it depends on where you're trying to make your money. But the U.S. audience is largely probably not going to be tuning in massive quantities for this fight because it just doesn't translate. It needs to be in the prime time.
Yeah, I'm just assuming this in terms of boxing media and just hoopla, this is 10 times bigger in Europe right now than it is over the
Oh
States.
yeah,
100%.
Maybe 10
Definitely.
times. Yeah. Okay.
Fury's inclusion
for all
alone.
parts of it.
Fury's inclusion alone.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
All right. Yeah.
Last question before we get to the peeps for all of you. We can do it real quick. Eric, I'll start with you. I'll just go down.
Yeah.
If Usyk wins, that means he would be undisputed champion in 2 weight classes, like cruiserweight
Yep.
and then the premier one, heavyweight. Right now, I believe he sits number 3 pound for pound in the Rings ranking, which are pretty
That's
accurate,
correct.
I think. Would you bump him to number 1, or would you keep him at
No.
3?
No, I think it'd be hard to pass to number one.
Inoue and Crawford, yeah.
Crawford did it against the guy who was also pound for pound ranked. Like
Right.
we're talking about like legendary type shit in their primes, like, and just made him look foolish, like absolute masterclass shit. I think, Fury probably is like given short shrift when it comes to pound for pound, just because of how big he is. And I think people kind of, like, as you would in pound for pound, hold it against him. So I think the magnitude of that is going to be a little bit lost when it comes to pound for pound rank. And Inoue is just like next level. Like, I think it'd be hard to bump him up. Heavyweights, it's just harder. They just have a tougher road. I think
you can't fluctuate.
You can't go up.
Heavyweight, you hit the ceiling. You can't really do what the definition of pound for pound is, which is why it's such a unique thing that Usyk is doing. Yeah, I have Crawford number 1. I have Inoue number 2. I wouldn't argue.
Same.
Yeah.
He would be like a number 3 that you're like the best number 3 you could think of. Like, it's just an impossible task, but like an incredible number 3. But I don't think he moves much.
Who do you have number 4? Canelo or Beterbiev?
I say Canelo, but I hear arguments. I hear arguments against it. I'd listen.
Jed, Casey, do you agree?
Almost the whole way. I currently have Canelo 1 in front of Usyk. I don't feel great about it. But
interesting.
If Usyk wins, I think he moves into number 3. Because Inoue is also a 2-weight undisputed champion. Like the only reason Inoue is not my number 1 right now is the respect for the Spence fight from Crawford.
That's literally why I have Crawford.
The Spence fight is a
on
game
paper.
changer.
I actually, on paper, I think Inoue probably deserves it as being a 2
that
division
Spence fight was just
champion.
Like the way he did it was so impressive.
Like I watched that dude fight and I was like, oh yeah, he's the best fighter alive right now. That's it. And I don't have to. It's just not the same. So that's 1 and 2, and I don't until they lose. That's not changing. And Usyk wins, he'll bump to 3. And then I have, I currently have it Canelo Usyk. And then the only thing holding back Beterbiev is relatively short competition right now.
Yeah, the only way I could see Usyk bump kind of going, he just can't be number 1, but even bumping number 2, he would have to, what Joshua did to Francis, Usyk would have to make Fury look that amateurish. In there, like, which will be insane if we actually saw that with our eyes.
I still think Inoue probably edges him. Honestly, I still think Inoue probably edges him.
I think if we have a replica of Spence Crawford,
or that
Usyk just beats the brakes out of Fury. Like, these are clear. Like, we had this conversation. Like, Crawford, Spence, these are the 2 best. Like, we're finally going to determine this and that, and it was not close. If Usyk does that to Fury, which I cannot imagine would happen, he might go to number 2. But I agree with you all. I wouldn't put a number 1.
I think it's just impossible. Wait, in boxing, is cruiserweight? What is cruiserweight? Is it 2? What is it? 2?
What's
195? I know.
Yeah,
no, 195.
I think the limit is 200.
It was 200. You are right.
The limit's 200.
200. Okay, so I thought it was a little higher. I thought it was like around 250.
And it's such a lame weight class. It's such a lame weight class. Like, not
you
in
guys
like
realize
the history of it.
It's very lame. I just realized, and I think I knew it, but I just thought of this. Like, if Usyk does win, then we live in a time where he, Crawford, and Inoue are all 4-belt undisputed champions in multiple weight classes. It's fucking outlandish.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
In a time where it like never happens. Yeah, and it also happened in such like quick kind of succession, which is kind of the wilder part.
I know. Yep.
Hey, it's kind of
now we need.
Like, how did boxing get this right somehow? Like, in all this chaos, somehow
there's an argument. There's an argument. Is it right or is it wrong? Right?
Oh,
like,
I guess
them not having contenders in their own weight classes, chasing money fights, and potentially going up for lack of legitimate competition or having cleared out. Like, I'd say it's good. Like, I ultimately want to see people kind of chase that greatness and success. I would love to see, even though I think Canelo will beat Crawford, I'd love to see like Terrence Crawford challenge himself. I get off on like stuff like that. I want to see people do this, but like,
There's
I
got
mean,
to
I
be
think there's
better
people.
words than what you chose
No,
there.
I get.
I like it.
Look, I like it.
I've already,
I'm willing to go there.
I've already clipped it.
Gotta
It's
be
out there
better
already.
words.
But I enjoy it. But I think there's some people who would say like they kind of want people to remain in their divisions and kind of like, you know, take comers as they are. But like I will say like because there's certainly challenges I think that we could say that Terrence Crawford should have, right? But
Yeah.
these are the fights. Like Spence was the fight, and he cleared that one. I'm okay with him
Yeah.
trying to go for
Yeah,
that. So
that's what I'm with. Once you get all the
That's
big
it.
names out in your weight class, I got no problem with people going
Yeah.
up. I also think the lack of HBO and Showtime, so there's just lack of places to go. Everything kind of has to be like DAZN.
that's a good point.
Whatever.
It's a really
So,
good
like,
point.
now all these fighters are under the same broadcast partner. Like now they can make these fights because that was the whole thing with Mayweather and Pacquiao, HBO versus Showtime.
Great point.
Like, to the point where like Esther was telling me when she was shooting for Showtime, there were literally lines on the floor that they could not cross over because that was HBO's side. And that's why like Kellerman interviewed Pacquiao and whoever, I can't remember his name, interviewed Mayweather. So now that everyone's here, I'm here for it. Who would have thought DAZN was the one that would survive all of this? Not me.
Yeah.
No,
That's
actually,
crazy, man.
Jose, you do make a good point about the great
TV
matchups we've had
broadcasting.
because of the broadcasting landscape has completely changed. So except we sell pay-per-views, but yeah. But
No, but like the homes of them is different because they could
yeah.
it could be HBO pay-per-view, Showtime pay-per-view, ESPN pay-per-view. Now that has dissolved, even though it is a pay-per-view model.
Still pay-per-view.
There's a lot more collaboration. I was pretty like heartened when for Fury Wilder, ESPN and Fox were like, yeah, we'll just do it on our own separate pay-per-view platforms, share the profits, do things like that. But now options are less, right? There's just less people in the game. And Saudi Arabia is coming in with quite a bit of money to make some of these fights happen. Like it seems like things are being very streamlined, like for good and bad. So we'll see what the net result of this all is.
Making up silly belts and everything.
But that's as old as
I know.
Boxing history.
Yeah. I hope there's there's a Bridgerweight now.
Yeah.
Jed?
No.
It's like the worst. It's like 200 to
I'm not
224.
accepting
It's so stupid. I'm pretty sure it's just the WBC, and I'm pretty sure it's like 2 years old. And it's the worst because at one point in time, after Canelo got all of his belts or whatever, or won the belt, there has been a Mexican champion in every single weight class except Bridgerton. Bridgerton.
Yes, Bridgerton.
That's hilarious.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. I didn't know that there had been a Mexican in every
champion. If you Andrew Reeves is Mexican American, but like he was the heavyweight champion of the world.
No, that still counts. Yeah, that's
100% it still counts. Like, I'm not Kevin Iole. That's going to be like he's not real Mexican, like he is. I love Kevin, but like that was a stupid thing for him to say. But like I'm pretty sure Bridgerweight was like 2022. It was announced by the WBC. I'm like, why?
That's correct.
What? Like 200 to 224? What a stupid weight class. Just make him heavyweight and cruiserweight, you dumb idiots. Anyway, I digress. Do you have any questions from the peeps?
Yes, sir. We got it for you.
I couldn't even name the Bridgerweight champion.
I just had it pulled up.
Who is it? Yeah, tell me.
It's currently the WBA is.
Oh, WBA has it too? Oh, that's
they added it last year. Jimmy Tashenko, but he was stripped in April for failing a drug test.
Just get rid of that stupid weight class.
The WBC is Lucas Rozansky.
That's a name. That's a name. Anyway.
He's a Polish dude. Little bit.
As I said,
I'll read it
Jose,
out loud for our audio.
Yeah.
Omega Vanable. I think that's how you pronounce it. Omega Vanable. How much does Fury's last performance factor into your predictions for the fight? Eric, you already started. Go ahead.
I put it into a box. I am completely like, maybe this is folly. Maybe I will regret this. I am taking that performance, putting it off to the side, and not thinking about it in reference to how it is going to look versus Usyk. Again, that might be silly. I think the more probably functional way to think about that was that a sign of a potential decline, right? More so than like how is being vulnerable to Ngannou going to affect him in Usyk? It is probably not. But I think the idea of like, look, Tyson Fury is not a spring chicken and has been in and out of competition many times over the course of his career. How many times can you kind of like rev that engine back up? Is a thing to think about. But the performance itself, the idea of like that fight in a vacuum, I'm not factoring it much in because I mean, first of all, Usyk's not even like remotely similar to Francis Ngannou in like there's not one thing I could think of that's similar between those two. So I'm ignoring it, and maybe that will be to my detriment.
That was when his daughter was very sick, correct?
Yeah.
Leading up to that fight, and he had to sleep. He was sleeping in the hospital floor, not really training, and then he just showed up to fight Francis while his daughter was in the hospital. Yeah, I don't take a whole lot from that because when he did get knocked down, Fury, who basically, it's similar to when, different circumstances, but when John Jones just didn't train to fight Gustafsson, got taken down and beat up in that first round, and then just kind of won on pure skill, just kind of pull it out of the bag. Similar with Fury. I just think he's a better boxer, and is he a better boxer? I don't know. Yeah, don't take anything away from that. Jed?
I can't not take nothing away from it. I agree that like this shouldn't be the primary, but and there are a lot of answers for why. You went over them. You really struggle with a dude who Anthony Joshua obliterated because he's not a boxer and he's not very good at it. And so I do not have the ability to put it in a box and completely disassociate. I can and that honestly probably is playing a factor in me picking Usyk. It's like I can't get all the way away from that piece of this. Again, it's not the primary focus of the analysis, but I can't separate entirely from it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
It has definitely influenced the betting line. Like, there's no doubt that the betting line would have looked completely different if that performance didn't happen. So
if he put the performance AJ put on Francis, yes.
Yeah, I was curious about that. Like, how does the perception of this fight change if Fury did what he was supposed to do? And
you think about how it, like, the talk around Anthony Joshua for a very long time, like after some very lackluster performances, was kind of like lukewarm to be like kind. Knocking out Francis Ngannou, who is not, is an 0-1 boxer, completely changed how people think about him versus Tyson Fury. Him even like potentially fighting Usyk again, like, and other heavyweights in that division. There's a real sheen that got put on him because he knocked out Francis Ngannou that way. And I think Tyson Fury took a very significant hit in people's like eyes as a boxer for what happened so drastically, like extremely drastically.
Similar to Francis lost, and there were people thinking he was going to beat Anthony Joshua because he was competitive against Fury. So you're only as good as your last performance, as they say.
That's right.
Yeah. Wild.
Also, if you guys hadn't seen, they did their first face-off, like big face-off at the press or whatever, and Tyson Fury flat out refused to look at Usyk in the eyes. He did the whole.
Oh, that's interesting.
A couple of good pictures,
like Anderson looking
right over him.
Not even over him. Like he looked at the crowd, and Usyk looked into his ear. And it was interesting. As boxing stare downs, it wasn't like a 10-second stare down. It was 5 minutes.
And it's a terrific I love that one because Usyk just looks like a little weirdo that he is, just staring at the side of Fury's face. Usyk's underratedly hilarious. Just by
he's very clever. He's a funny dude. I like Usyk's brand of humor a lot.
Usyk could speak English or like better English, he would be a superstar. Like if he spoke the same type of English.
He needs that triple G English.
No,
triple G English.
I think he has triple G English. I think he has just like triple G level English.
He definitely knows more English than he lets on because like when someone like his big thing is like, how do you feel about this and that? And he'll be like, I feel. And then like that's it.
I feel.
Like that's his whole thing. That's like his go-to line. Like instead of big drama show, he'll be like, I feel. Yeah. I love that guy.
Yeah,
he's also an unbelievable.
I like Belly, even though it's not the most creative. I like Belly. Belly's funny.
He calls him Belly. Usyk's also an unbelievable dancer.
By the most, not the most creative. Sure, Fury just called Francis Ngannou a big sausage.
The Dosser sausage. He's got a few go-tos.
Yeah. Fury is clever
watching
with
this
his
face off
insults that
again.
the word dosser was not a thing until Tyson Fury started to call people that. And then he went on Urban Dictionary and added it himself and made the definition. What I can't remember what the definition was, and it says use
Is
it in a
that true?
sentence.
He
And it
added
was
it himself to Urban
yeah.
Dictionary?
There's an interview where he goes, "Go to Urban Dictionary right
Unbelievable.
now," and someone like pulls it up, and he goes, "Use it in a sentence." He goes, "Anthony Joshua is a big fat dosser," and he put that himself. Like that's how like far ahead he thinks about these things, or he used to at least.
That's funny.
All right.
That's
Hey
one
guys,
place.
we have
Oh,
some
this
super,
is
we
there are a
got
couple
super
of good
chats.
super chat.
Yeah.
There's one very
And-
good
Chat.
super chat in here.
And guess who we have it from? Our good friend, Achilles Jr.
Yeah, buddy.
Achilles Jr. for $4.99. Rick, if you were
Got
a
him.
boxer, your weight class would be loser weight.
Got him.
Well
Wow.
done.
Rude.
Well played. Now,
paid
Achilles,
$4.99
I'm going
to
to
say
need
that,
you.
my guy.
I'm going to need you to guess my weight now. I need you to write in the upper limit and the lower limit of loser weight, so that I know who's eligible and I can defend my title against them. Or actually, no, I'm not the champion of this division yet,
You
right?
didn't say
So
you were
now I need to
champion, you
know.
said you were
I
in
need to
it.
know who I'm going to face in this division and what weight that actually is. So give me some parameters for loser weight, and I'll clean them up. And you know what? What I'm hoping is I hope your ass fits into the loser weight division, and we're gonna battle. And me and you, we're gonna battle. So tell me what
I
loser
would
weight
pay
is.
$4.99 to watch that.
So wait,
Loser
do you
weight is
become
a
do you
terrific
become the
childish
champion of the
insult.
loserweight division if you lose the championship fight?
Maybe.
Yeah, I feel like if you
You
lose,
have
you
to-
probably become the
Good
champ.
question.
Actually, that's a good
Yeah,
question.
Yeah.
That's
And
a
you have
good
to-
Achilles,
yeah,
we need some more details. We need some more details.
All right.
Well
we got
done,
another.
no Achilles.
That
Got another
that was
super
very
chat
funny.
here
Good job.
from this is Jed's nemesis, Mr. Senor
Not-
Pepe.
Not my nemesis. I
Senor Pepe.
I don't think
for
about
$4.99.
Senor
On a
Pepe.
side note, why does Jed still suck?
I mean,
Why are you all so
you
mean?
just talked to me like 3 days ago, so I haven't had a lot of time.
You want to
get
hear a
better,
funny
Senor
story?
Pepe.
A very true story, Jed. I know you know the story because I wrote on the Slack channel. I was at the gym about a month ago. And you know what I'm about to say.
I do.
If you
Some of my
there are
favorite
some
things in the world.
there's some MMA like if you recognize Ariel or John Morgan or like even Oscar, like you're a fan. If you recognize me, you really like MMA. And I was at the gym with my headphones on, and someone taps me on the shoulders, and I go, "Are you Jose Youngs with MMA fan?" I go, "Yeah, what's up, man?" And he just goes, "What's Jed's deal?" And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, he just, what's his problem?" I go, "I couldn't tell you, man." And then he goes, "All right, have a good workout." And that was it. Didn't ask me what I'm
I have
his only thing was, "What's Jed's deal?"
I have a feeling you ran into Mr. Senor Pepe.
I was
I have a
saying,
feeling
Yeah.
that you met Mr. Senor Pepe.
Senor Pepe, do you live in the East Village in New York? Probably.
How about the hardcores that are coming out for the boxing?
That's how you know
preview
this fight is
Yeah.
a big
show.
deal.
The shit on me and you. I love it. I love it.
That's how you know this is a
Achilles
big
is always
deal.
Yeah, it's
Down to
spending
clown
good
on
money. Yeah,
Anyway,
appreciate it.
there's probably
So-
a lot of MMA questions,
Yeah.
but we'll save those for
Yeah.
Seen a few
UFC
of those,
Vegas.
but-
Oh,
Oh,
I have
that's
no
a
idea.
good question. I
What's the
actually don't
purse
know.
for both? From Two Piece No Biscuit, what's the purse? That is an excellent
Isn't it-
question that I
isn't
couldn't
it-
tell you.
Isn't it so like fitting for this fight that like the boxing fight and not the business it's gonna do is the focus, right? For a
I
lot
love
of these kind of
Yeah,
fights
yeah,
that
yeah.
we talk about, it really is like Francis got the bag, Tyson Fury's cleaning up, and really like I can't say for 1 second I even thought about the purses for this fight. I have no idea. I hope they're making a lot of money, and I'm
Yeah.
sure they are.
So
But
according
we've
to
been
but I
kind of
didn't think
talking.
about
We've been kind of talking about roundabout because we've been saying basically Turkey and the oil money made this fight happen. So we obviously know they're getting giant purses. We just don't know what. I guess.
So according
but some
to
of that-
TalkSports.com,
Yeah.
Bob Arum discussed the pay for the bout and revealed the Gypsy King was offered $100 million and he wouldn't be happy this and that. So yeah, I think it's 70-30 split in favor of Fury. And it is estimated that Tyson Fury is making $150 million US or 116 million pounds. Whatever Usyk
I heard
accepted
that-
the minority share, with the stipulation that Tyson Fury would donate 1 million pounds of his earnings to the Ukraine like war
just-
efforts.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm seeing is
That's all I
150 million per 70-30 split. So
Yeah,
a lot of
That's
money.
insane money.
that's so much
That's
money.
insane money.
Where do you have any offhand? Do you know where that ranks as far as like individual purses?
It's tough with
Um,
Mayweather because he was also the
yeah.
promoter.
So,
Yeah, but he's still
once
paying
you get
himself
into
a purse.
that part,
There's still an agreed upon purse for that fight.
yeah, yeah. I know it's different because
I will
Mayweather was the
find
promoter.
out.
Just kind of curious. Like what? Like do we ever like a ballpark figure of what Conor made when he fought Mayweather? Like I
won
just
like
can't
30
remember.
million.
I think the number, I think the number was like in the 50 or something.
No,
McGregor's-
Connor was like 100 million, but
Conor
30 went to
McGregor's
UFC.
guaranteed purse was 30 million.
It's
That's like
guaranteed
his
was 30 million.
guaranteed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
I
he
knew
probably
that.
made at least 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure more.
Yeah, at least 50. Yeah,
If his guarantee was 30, he probably made 75.
yeah. With
The
sponsorships and pay per
the
views.
biggest paychecks earned by a boxer since 2000, as of 2002. So obviously that's changed. From Statista.com has a big fancy chart. Mayweather made 275 million to fight Conor. He made 250 million to fight Manny. Manny made 150 million to fight Floyd.
Sounds right.
Okay, so
and then
when we were talking
all
about
the
the
others
best
are
prize
equal.
fighter, I feel like this settles that debate
Yeah.
pretty like conclusively. Like this dude was just on such a level.
But you'd have to. It's still so different.
I get it.
Because he's the promoter, and like, how much
Well,
money did
I mean-
Don King not give Mike Tyson? Like,
Oh,
Yeah,
like
no,
Don
all
King
the money.
probably pocketed like 300 million.
Mike Tyson is the biggest celebrity boxer, the biggest celebrity who's ever boxed, no doubt. The biggest
right.
name, biggest
If
like entertainer. But man, Floyd Mayweather, that dude hacked the system.
I don't know, man. If Mike Tyson in his prime fought the exact same day as Floyd Mayweather,
I'm
in his
watching
earnings
that.
time, I think
I'm
Mike
watching
Tyson
that.
will. I think Mike Tyson out earns Floyd Mayweather 100%. He's a bigger attraction. He's just
I'm
a
watching
scary
that.
dude.
No
Yeah,
argument.
He's just a scary man.
Yeah.
Like one of my earliest childhood memories is watching the build-up for Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson and thinking it was the biggest thing that has ever happened. And then the build-up for Lennox Lewis when Mike Tyson showed up with a face tattoo, and I was like, "Oh,
the
man,
Lennox Lewis
love
one was
Every Mike Tyson fight was a cultural experience. You cannot say the same for Floyd, right? You can say that for the last couple. You can say that for the ones that made him those big paydays that you said, like Manny
Who was his last pro
Pacquiao,
fight? Who was
Conor-
his fight before Connor?
Who was his fight before Conor?
Exactly.
Berto?
It's Andre Berto. It was Andre
Berto,
Berto. And it
Berto,
was like a
yeah.
trash ass fight. And before that,
what
it
was the fight?
Pacquiao.
Whatever.
Before that, it was the two Maidana, and then there was
one
Robert,
of these
Robert
men
Guerrero.
got $250 million to box Conor McGregor. That's the greatest grift in the history of sports.
Yeah, if we're talking about biggest grifters, Mayweather's way up there. Talking about prize fighting, I
Unbelievable
think
grift.
I mean, at worst, he's number two. The fact that we're having this argument is at worst, he's number two. Canelo's way up there too, honestly. Anthony Joshua is
Canelo's
one of the biggest draw. Gate-wise, Anthony Joshua is also one of the biggest draws. Like, one of the UK writers was explaining this to me. Like the different, like since pay-per-view wasn't a whole big thing in the UK, Joshua is viewed as like an attraction that you pay a ticket for rather than watch on TV.
Yeah.
Sure, he has that. Like Floyd Mayweather doesn't have the benefit of like in the United States, as we see with MMA fighters, like the fighters don't. The country doesn't come out to support like for Floyd in the way that they would for somebody like Joshua, and also in Mexico for Canelo. Right, we're talking about a different type of event. It's not like a high ticket price item, so it's hard. Like he is going to be that guy. It's interesting that he probably is ahead of Fury in quite a decent margin there because like he's such a celebrity. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Like if I was managing Anthony Joshua's career, if I was Eddie Hearn, that's exactly what I'd focus on. And it sounds like Eddie Hearn did that. And he's a smart dude. He's a smart dude to have booked it that way.
Didn't Anthony Joshua signed a lifetime deal with Eddie Hearn too, right? I think that's what I heard.
You'd be telling
like
me, but that
like
would make sense.
Like he literally can't go to another promotion. It's like LeBron signed a lifetime deal with Nike.
I'm sure that's not enforceable,
That's
but
not legal.
yeah,
Right. I'm just saying, like, there's like some sort of handshake agreement that'll never leave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good.
Anthony Joshua is supposed to be
well.
$1 billion boxer. Put your money behind him if you're a promoter. It's a good move.
Remember Dana White wanted to get in the Anthony Joshua business at one point, like back then.
Hell, I'd
with
want
boxing?
to too.
Why
It's a
can't
handsome
that
man
get in
with
the
a
power?
gold medal.
Power slap business. That's where it's at.
No,
Anthony Joshua
Joshua's
could move numbers for power slap.
dude. If Anthony Joshua went to power slap, it would become must-see television. 100%. Come on,
Bring back
bro.
X-Arm.
I apologize for bringing up power slap. My bad.
Anthony Joshua for power
Apologize.
slap. Hey Anthony, I heard you made 100 M's over the last 2 fights. You want to go slap somebody for $3K? How's that sound? You want to go slap somebody?
I think
in the face?
Anthony Joshua
go
could. I
first,
think
okay.
Anthony Joshua could kill a man if he slapped him. For sure, I think he could kill a man.
I hope we never find out.
Yeah, is he training? All right. I don't. This might be a silly question, but I've seen a couple people ask it. So tell me what you guys think.
From Cole B, do you guys think sleep deprivation will affect Usyk? I'm not sure if he's fought at 4 a.m. before. Now, I would imagine, like most other fighters, they structure their camps around their peak fighting time. So I don't think he's. I also assume he's been in Saudi for a minute too.
He's not fighting at 4 a.m. This fight will happen in their time. This fight is happening on their clocks.
When Joshua and Ngannou fought, didn't they talk about they walked out like
happening in Saudi?
They walked out like at 1:30 in the morning. It was something crazy too.
No, crazier than that. It was like 3 a.m. It was like 3 a.m. when they walked. When Francis
and
finally
Ngannou had been in the arena.
They'll be fighting at like 11 p.m.
They'll be fighting at
like right around right now.
Okay,
that's a little bit later.
Normal.
That's
okay.
Yes.
In Saudi, it's 11.
Yeah. No, they're
fine.
not fighting at that crazy time. Yes, for for Joshua and Ngannou, they did walk at an absolutely insane time. Yeah, I think it was like 3 a.m. all told. Like I think they hit the ring. And so this will not affect them. As far as that goes, like, yeah, Ngannou was on the MMA Hour and kind of alluded to the idea that like it wasn't great, and also he was in the arena for many hours.
They showed up too early.
That though, to me, is exactly the point. Ngannou said that because for as much as MMA fans hate to hear this shit, it's a nonsense child sport that is not where boxing is. Like, he should have known, and they should have prepared, to Jose's point, for, all right, you're going to be fighting at this time. You need to structure not just fight week, but months in advance for this. MMA is the sport where you get Cain Velasquez flying to Mexico a week before he's fighting for a title in Mexico City and get obliterated because your gas tank can't
You have
hold
main
up.
event fighters flying economy international.
Ngannou was told to get to the arena at a certain time. Ngannou was told to walk at a certain time. Joshua was not given these same like there was either a willful kind of thing going on or a miscommunication that it wasn't necessarily just like Ngannou not prepping. There was some things that happened there that were not proper. Now I'm not arguing that like you shouldn't be prepared to fight late in the night, but like he was warming up 3 times before he fought.
I'm suspect of that in general. But mostly this is just, no, these two are professionals, and the time, like if they were fighting at whatever time,
well, it's also
$100
equal,
million
right?
fight. They're not leaving stones unturned.
It's also equal, right? I'm trying to paint the picture that like it kind of wasn't equal for Ngannou and Joshua, but for another day for Ngannou to talk more about. But they'll both be fighting at 4 a.m. if they were fighting at 4 a.m. So you kind of just have to roll the dice. As long as the playing field is even, then.
Plus, also just look into Usyk's eyes. That man is a lunatic. Do you think something like this?
That man literally like a year ago was fighting a war on the front lines.
Yeah.
They probably didn't have set time frames for when they were doing that. So
I would hazard a guess that you don't get much sleep when you're fighting a literal war.
The war begins
hey guys,
at
we
3
can't
a.m.
do this until tomorrow at noon. That's when we agreed.
But either way, fortunately, I think it is much more ideal for them to be fighting in that like 10, 11 midnight range, and that is what they're doing. So crisis averted in all cases anyway.
Facts.
All right.
I saw a super chat, but you don't have to put it up.
Yeah.
Turkey from Brandon QFG. Turkey's interview on MMA Hour, he expressed anger at the IBF and threatened fighters can drop their titles. Will Riyadh season create their own belts eventually? I don't know.
Yep.
Because he also said, I
Yep.
would imagine. I mean, he already did once. He also said he
Yep.
didn't want to be a promoter, but yeah, I would imagine.
No, he doesn't
It's
want
gonna
to be. He doesn't want to be a promoter, but I think he does want to kick the governing bodies out of the equation quite swiftly because they do.
He basically
complicate
wants
matters.
he wants like a UFC type model where everything is under one thing and you're fighting for one belt, and you can have Usyk and Fury fighting for the Riyadh championship rather than all these 6 other belts.
If anything, the Saudi Arabia boxing thing has proven that like promoters can come together if there's enough money on the table, right?
Oh,
Saudi
Frank
has enough
Warren
money
and
to say
Eddie
like
Hearn on the same stage.
Frank
crazy.
and Eddie,
Yeah,
kumbaya.
that's
It's
wild.
the problem that the governing bodies still control the belts, right? The
Yeah.
governing bodies are able to say like, now you have a mandatory challenger instead of the fight that like Terrence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez is more significant when belts are in play and more significant when there's titles on the line and everybody can say like these guys. And so when that gets complicated by a mandatory challenger for another belt and we have to divert and maybe take that fight if we want to retain our belts, then that complicates things. So I would not be surprised if additional belts are created. I would definitely not be surprised if there's a way to ice out the governing bodies. I would also not be surprised if fighters start to go, as long as Saudi's paying me, I don't care about the belts. And really, I just want to put on the best fight. So I think the dynamic is going to drastically shift based on the Saudi Arabia imprint on boxing.
Yes. 100%.
All right. And our last comment is actually a super chat. It's very important.
Let's go.
Mr. Senor Pepe, how much to get Rick and Jed in Power Slap? Rick versus Jed in Power Slap.
There's not a. First of all, I love Jed dearly. Would never do it. Second of all, I would never do Power Slap.
I'll slap the shit out of Rick. I don't care.
What Derek Lewis says, I'll punch anyone in the face for money.
His own grandmother, right? Like,
The issue is Dana has me blocked on Twitter, so I don't think he'll sign me to Power Slap. So
that's true.
I figure that out.
Turkey will smooth that out. Don't worry.
There's no realistic amount of money that they would actually pay me enough to do Power Slap. I would never do it. Like
It's
if they
such an
decided
insane
like,
product.
hey,
I guess realistic.
I would do bare knuckle a million times over before Power Slap.
yeah, I'm not doing Power Slap. It would take.
I'd do either of them if the money's right. I don't give a fuck.
It would take a lot. It would take a real lot, and they would
Power
have given enough
mercenary.
value.
I actually went to a Power Slap event because I went to do the Dana White scrum, and the rules are just crazy to me. Like one guy flew from London to Vegas to participate in Power Slap. He was like the 8th ranked person and his whatever. Got knocked out in the first slap, and then they just took him to the back and he went home. I'm like, you flew all the way around the world to get knocked out with one slap.
I'll do it.
And then
Okay, so what's the number? Pretend
remember.
it's happening. What is the number, Jed? To just get slapped in the face.
That's the thing is that they wouldn't pay me the number I want, but high 5 figures, mid 5 figures, I'd do it. I've been knocked out before. I've been knocked out again. Who gives a shit?
No, but there's a difference between just like willfully getting knocked out and like defensively getting knocked out. No defense.
That's the thing. This is a one-time affair. I'm not trying to do this every week or whatever.
What else is fun?
But if you want to give me 50 G's,
one of the other
50 G's. Oh, I need 6. I need 6 or 7 figures at least.
One of the other guys that he got knocked out, like he was out cold, like he was out on the floor, and they stretchered him away. But because the other guy that slapped had shifted his weight like incorrectly, whatever, he got disqualified. So the guy that was dead won, and he never got to throw a slap. It was such a crazy product to watch.
See, here's going back to your point about needing 6 figures, though, Rick. I've discussed similar topics for a long time with a lot of friends. I know my exact number, like for what pretty much anything's on the table. But I'm also honest enough with myself to know that if you just dropped 50 grand in cash, I'm not going to walk away cash on the table versus the ephemeral, we'll pay you this versus here's a briefcase of money. I'm probably going to accept a briefcase.
So it sounds like Mr. Senor Pepe just literally has to come up with 50K and he can probably get you to do something like
if you would like to come up with 50K, Senor Pepe, you could
put it on the
slap
table.
Shit out of me.
Wow. Yeah, I'm in the middle of that 6-figure range.
Basically, when you say 50K,
Eric, you put $50K in a bank right now. Your kids are going to college for free, bro. Come on.
Are you-
You're not gonna do it for your children?
I've made smart investments. I don't have to worry about that. I don't need it in my life. I'm good.
Jed,
I'm good.
50K, are you willing to get your jaw broken right now? Someone just, boom, your jaw will guarantee you get broken. You're going to be drinking from a straw for
why
it.
you think I'm bitch made? You think I can't handle a slap to the face? Now look, the
Do it for
price
10K.
goes up if I'm power slapping against Francis Ngannou, but they're
Okay.
He's
Now you're
got to
changing the-
negotiate.
They're
Look at-
weight
look at
classes in power slap.
So they call you in. They're like, we're gonna have you power slap someone, and they get the first slap, and then they bring you out, and then
It's
the
Mark
music
Romani.
hits,
Mark Romani
and
gets
then
to slap you.
and then someone comes out with a microphone, and it's John Jones. He's like, I heard you call me a pussy, and then he just stands in front of you ready to
Chicken.
slap.
Chicken.
And you
Okay.
you can back out. You can back out if you want,
Nah,
but you
I'll
don't
take
get
it.
paid. Okay.
Take it. It'll suck.
John,
I'm not
if
saying
you
this
got-
will be a fun experience.
Hey, John, if you got 50K and want to shut Jed up, it sounds like
And
we
if you
have.
get knocked out,
be
you
real
don't
clear.
get the money. If you get
You
knocked
won't
out, you
shut
do
me
not
up,
get the
John.
money.
They'll wire my jaw shut, and I'll come back on all these programs with a wired ass jaw. and
Mumbling,
saying the same
you're a
shit.
chicken.
So you're saying you would do it for the clout,
No, I do it for the 50
and
grand.
50K. Yeah.
but you wouldn't get branded for a clout, right?
No. No, I don't. I just could not care less about clout.
Oh, someone will get that. Anyway, do we have
I
any
got
more
it.
questions?
No, we are good.
We are good.
Really
Thank you
wanna
guys
get
so much
branded
for
for
tuning
50K.
into
That's a
the
lot.
Tyson
Getting
Fury,
branded is
Oleksandr
forever.
Usyk preview show here on
Yeah,
MMA
people
Fighting.
get,
This
people
has
get
been-
branded for free.
That's true. This has been
I-
Jose Youngs. That has been Power Slap's #1 fan, Jed Meshew. That is Senor Pepe's, or I can't remember his name's
Achilles
favorite
Jr.
person.
Achilles.
Whatever his name was, Eric Jackman. Casey on the 1s and 2s. UFC Vegas 92 preview show tomorrow live on MMA Fighting's YouTube page. See you then.
Love y'all.
I
Hasta
got the
luego.
thumb. I never get the thumb.